I just wanted to talk about an issue that's really close to my heart, and this is about the difficulties faced by many Filipino families in the UK, or maybe Brits married to Filipinos, or any other nationality married to Pinoys. This is really in relation about the costs of traveling back home to the Philippines. I have to say, over the last 3 decades, I've been fortunate enough to visit the Philippines over 55 times. And much of this was in the earlier days where it really wasn't that expensive to go home. Maybe you could get an airfare, maybe for £500 or £600 per person. And if you go back maybe 10 or 15 years ago, you could get an airfare for as low as £450 a person. That won't even get you to the airport now in petrol. People have to understand the realities. People need to understand how difficult it is now for Filipinos living here in the UK, or in fact any Pinoy living around the world. If they're living away from the Philippines, life is incredibly difficult. I have to say, people back home in the Philippines, some people, not all, they seem to think that everyone here is rich. Nothing can be further from the truth. Life is incredibly hard here in the UK now for everybody. The fact is, even for the nurses, maybe their salary, if they went back home to the Philippines and get spending money, brought a family there, they're talking about half their salary, or at least a third of their yearly salary to visit the Philippines. Things are pretty tough. I know I mentioned this a few times online, but one of my friends needed to go back home to the Philippines for a funeral. And I tried to search for an airfare and an economy fare. This is just an example. An economy fare from the 25th of July to the 2nd of August came back at nearly £5,000. That was in economy, one of the Middle Eastern airlines. I think it was £4,600. If one ticket is £4,600, if 4 people travel back to the Philippines, you're talking about £20,000, or most people's salary for the year, just to go back home. It's really, really tough right now, and people need to understand this. And I do worry about the impact this will have on mental health. Filipinos living here in the UK, they can't visit their families, they can't visit their elderly parents, and this definitely has an adverse effect on mental health. It's a real worry. Over the years, as my kids grew up, I've been fortunate enough to bring them back home to visit their family in the Philippines. And that's been amazing, and I can't change anything about that. I know I'm so pleased that I was able to do that. But for families now, if you're a young family in the UK from the Philippines, if you're all going to go home and then you're going to have spending money, you're talking about £10,000. You need a bank loan. So this means that children here and young people here are going to be disenfranchised. They're not going to be able to visit their own family, their own cousins, their own relatives, grandparents. You just can't do it. Things have become very, very hard here at the moment, very, very tough. It used to be the case that if you had like a family emergency, maybe somebody was sick in the Philippines, you would just get on a flight, you travel back home to the Philippines straight away. But now, particularly in the summer, for example, if you want to buy a flight to the Philippines, maybe in July, you're talking about £3,000 or £4,000. It's just not doable anymore. It's maybe even a quarter of a yearly salary just to visit your own country. And I'm particularly worried about newly arrived Filipinos, Filipino nurses, healthcare workers. When they come to the UK, it's pretty tough. Money doesn't grow on trees, it's really hard. And then if they leave their families, they come to the UK, they want to go back home to the Philippines to visit relatives. It's incredibly difficult. You know, it's really, really a challenge right now. Going back home to the Philippines is super, super expensive. And people need to understand this. People need to understand the realities of how bad it is and how it impacts on mental health. You know, I'm not even a Filipino myself, and I really, really miss the Philippines, and I want to visit my family back there. But you know, it's nigh on impossible to be able to afford to go there, and that's such a great shame. You know, I hope there's a solution. I hope maybe the government can maybe speak to the airline industry, or maybe come up with a way of solving this crisis that's facing so many right now. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching, and you know, best wishes to everybody. I do hope that you guys can visit the Philippines in the nearest time, but I understand the challenges. I understand how tough it is for many, many families at the moment. Anyway, thanks guys for watching.